Hello and welcome to another SciFirst MovieTalk episode. So, in this episode, I will be discussing Disney's 2018 animated classic Ralph Breaks the Internet, watched as part of Family Film Night. So, this is Disney's 58th animated classic, and again, as always for the newer Disneys, that depends on your take on what constitutes such a classic. So again, I'm still working on it, I promise, of an episode to explain what I mean in my Disney reviews with regards to my take on the classics numbering system, that I use at least. And so please do subscribe to my channel to catch that episode as soon as it's released. It is on its way, promise. So, the film is actually a direct sequel to 2012's Disney's hit Wreck-It Ralph, which introduced us to the world within video games. Interconnected kinda through the power supply in a video arcade, where characters have lives of their own and interact with those from other games in the centre. So, Ralph Breaks the Internet centres around the previous film's two main protagonists and best friends. Ralph, as voiced by John C. Reilly again, a bad guy from a retro 8-bit style video game called Fix-It Felix Jr., and Vanellope Von Sweets, as voiced by, again, Sarah Silverman, the lead character in kind of a peppy racing game called Sugar Rush. We find Vanellope in this film basically in a state of melee with regards to her game. She knows every track, every turn, and every secret level. So Ralph then basically tries to cheer Vanellope up by creating a new track within the game. But disaster kind of strikes when the wheel to the game actually breaks as she's tackling this new track. The owner of the arcade, Mr. Litwack, as voiced by Ed O'Neill, tries to kind of obtain a replacement part, but the only one available is on eBay at a cost far greater than what Sugar Rush would actually make in a year. So, in a twist of fate from the first film, it is now Sugar Rush which is put out of action and in grave danger of being unplugged. So our two heroes then decide, against better judgment, I suppose, to then venture into the unknown in order to save Sugar Rush and kind of then venture through the arcade's new Wi-Fi connection into the bewildering and eye-opening world of the internet. Basically, in order to track down the required replacement wheel and save Vanellope's game. Whilst there, they meet a number of very colourful and sometimes shady characters, finding themselves involved in a money-making scam to find rare objects on the internet. This does bring them to a game called Slaughter Race, which is basically kind of an online multiplayer kind of race game where they meet the game's principal character, Shank, as voiced by Gal Gadot, which then leads them to a place called BuzzTube, which is kind of like a sort of a YouTube cum TikTok video site, where Ralph then proceeds to become a viral sensation in order to make enough money to pay for the replacement wheel. Vanellope, however, becomes kind of enamoured with Shank and the Slaughter Race game, seeing that just how intense and dangerous and fresh it is, especially for a racer like herself. However, Ralph sees this new relationship develop and basically starts to fret that Vanellope is basically losing interest in him, and that their kind of different desires in life are kind of starting to break them apart as friends. This insecurity leads Ralph to unwittingly release a virus on the internet, which basically starts to eat away at its whole infrastructure, leading to a DOS attack, sending the world into chaos. He kind of only intended to slow down Slaughter Race using the virus, basically a little, just to kind of make it seem less interesting to Vanellope. There is then a race against time to fix what Ralph has set loose on the world and to get back to the arcade in time to save both of their games. So, this movie was great fun and certainly packed a lot into it. But if I'm honest, perhaps quite not as much as the first. For me, the main aspects that made the first film great were kind of like those nostalgic kickbacks to some of the great games of the past. It didn't overdo itself in this respect, as it introduced two new games as its central theme to not detract from the main story being told. However, it did include an absolute cavalcade of characters to which many could relate, both the young and old gamers alike. However, this film does not utilise this style in quite the same way. And instead, basically, it chooses to sideline all of the characters, bar our two heroes, into the background, and basically for a couple of side gags, which for me, I felt was a bit of a miss. The premise of the film is an excellent idea. I just don't think it was perhaps as executed as well as it could have been. And moments feel almost like Disney had kind of retracted back to their days of like Home on the Range, if you know what I mean. And perhaps this time around kind of missing their target audience. This time around, you see, the film kind of pokes fun at the trends which sweep the internet. And of course, we all know, how it's repetitive and perhaps quite dull at times. I mean, hey, you're watching this in any event. But nah, kidding of course. But hopefully, you know what I mean. As funny and as relevant as some of it was literally poking fun at some of its own target audience. For me, it would have been perhaps nice to have seen the interaction of the characters with a few more games from the past and the present, given that the internet itself would have opened the doorway to this. And of course, this is what had made the initial film speak out to me, personally. But in this, there was none. Instead, the film chooses to concentrate more on paying homage to Disney in general, with cameos from the likes of Buzz Lightyear, the Stormtroopers from the Star Wars series, Groot from Guardians of the Galaxy, and the whole ensemble of Disney princesses all make their appearance. Which, okay, it was a nice touch, not saying it wasn't, and to some extent, but it had nothing to do with gaming, and felt placed only to gain a rise out of the audience, really. Although, yes, I'll admit it was quite comical to see, and it did lead to a fantastic sequence with the Disney princesses and Ralph during the end scenes. And it was excellent to see Disney take a light-hearted approach to some of their own beloved properties. I did actually especially enjoy the way that the film portrayed the annoying pop-ups, that you get on the internet, and the kind of like the forced advertising that you get, which is, I am sure, the vein of many. In the movie, the pop-ups were indeed their own characters working, if you like, for the companies involved, and in the way in which they kind of piled the trade, it was hilarious. Additionally, one of the other kind of standout moments for me, kind of in relation to games, was the way in which the online users were portrayed in Slaughter Race. Each had a way of kind of moving which mirrored the lag that we've all experienced in such online multiplayer games, I'm sure. Especially when you kind of contrast this with the smooth and jitter-free action of the gaming characters themselves. Very irritating when that happens. But, so, I mean, furthermore, whilst I wouldn't say that this, it's not your typical Disney musical, one thing that this does different from the first film is that it does actually contain an excellent musical sequence sung by Vanellope, which kind of forms part of the process the film uses to affirm her position as a Disney princess, which of course she undoubtedly is. Like the film in general, it's an offbeat, atypical Disney musical number, but it works very well and speaks to Vanellope's character and frame of mind in the movie. It is a film about friendship and putting it to the test during the hardest of times, and in the shadow of new temptations and new friends made along the way. It speaks that we can all be ourselves while still being friends with somebody who doesn't necessarily share our own desires and values. We're all different, and that's a good thing. It doesn't have to mean the end of a friendship. We just have to adjust and adapt to make it work, as indeed Ralph and Vanellope do. So, overall, this is by no means a bad movie. No way. It's fantastic. It's actually an excellent movie in its own right. It just doesn't recapture the magic of the first in the same way. It kind of doesn't seek to be as nostalgic as the first. instead kind of taking an alternative view of the workings of the internet. It's kind of just a shame that some more of the characters from the first movie kind of don't get involved in more of the action. It does have some great moments to watch out for and some great on the edge of your seat action. It was certainly interesting to see Disney's take on how they kind of see the internet work, and indeed kind of taking a light-hearted approach to the portrayal of some of their previous efforts. So, that brings me to the end of this episode. Thank you very much for watching. If you have liked the episode, please do leave a like, and please do hit that subscribe button for more movie reviews, more movie-related content such as film trailer reactions, gaming, movie gaming related episodes. But yeah, I hope you've enjoyed it. Please do come back to SciFirst Movie Talk for more, and thank you very much for watching. Goodbye.